20 seconds and counting.
Hey, what's good, y'all? Welcome back to another video. It's Anish. I'm joined with Drew, and we have so much news for you regarding the Texans head coach search. And before I begin, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below for more Texans updates. And let me just get right into it. So, Josina Anderson earlier today says, as of this morning, I'm told the Texans still have not made a final decision on their head coach, but Brian Flores is still considered a finalist, even after his filing of a class action lawsuit against the NFL. And he's also a finalist along with Jonathan Gannon and Josh McCown. And apparently, the Texans have spent the last 48 hours or so thoroughly vetting the staffing plans for each of their finalists to ascertain viability, availability, and fit. The outcome of that review is very important to this process, as is alignment per league source. And she also goes on to say that the Texans are rallying up on their decision. And she says, to her understanding, Kevin O'Connell, who's interviewing for the head coach job, continues to be thought of highly within the Houston's organization. And O'Connell is earmarked for the Vikings head coach job unofficially. And yeah, that was reported earlier that the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell have agreed upon him being the next head coach of their team, but he can't officially sign until after the Super Bowl. So that's one thing to note. And if y'all didn't know, the Brian Flores did file a lawsuit against the NFL, regarding the Rooney Rule practices, him being interviewed without kind of disingenuously, because I'll just share some of those details with y'all. Apparently, Bill Belichick texted Brian Flores that congratulating that he got the job, but he meant to text Brian Dabble, and he texted him that before Brian Flores was about to interview. So the Giants had already made their choice on who's going to be their head coach before interviewing Brian Flores. So that seemed pretty disingenuous. And there's a lot of things of him, his experience in 2019 with the Broncos. They didn't really care about the interview at all, and they just disrespected him that way. So him finally gets the whole NFL. There's a lot of more details, and I'm sure Drew can definitely go into that. So yeah, he filed against the NFL, and so a lot of people are thinking that makes him out of the running, but it seems like he's still right in the thick of it. So Drew, what do you make of all these new updates?
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of new updates. To me, one of the most important things that I heard was from Ian Rappaport. I think it was like either yesterday or this morning, something like that. He talked about how Nick Caserio was going to do what's best for the team. He would hire Brian Flores with or without these allegations. There was another report, I think like a couple of days ago, where it said that Flores had told the Saints and the Texans about the lawsuit before his second interview with the Texans, and of course before his first interview with the Saints, and that both of those interviews, one with the Saints went well, one with the Texans went well. The Texans have been very interested in Flores throughout this entire process. He was the first guy that the Texans did interview, which is just shows you something there. Obviously, with Flores being a DB's coach in New England, I believe, gives him a connection to Flores. It gives him a connection to Caserio, and of course, Jack Easterby was actually in New England at that time. Flores was there. Heard rumblings about how they're pretty close too, but not saying that Easterby necessarily makes decisions. Just saying that he's someone in the organization that Flores could possibly know. But in terms of the head coaching search as a whole, there's very slim chance the Texans can get Kevin O'Connell, like Anish said. He's probably going to the Vikings. And of course, but you can't forget about Jonathan Gannon. Gannon, to me, is a guy who would probably work with Caserio the best. He's a former scout. He also worked with Josh McDaniels when they were both at the Rams as a scout. That's something to look into. That kind of gives them a little connection. And I feel like they both share similar views. So it's just really hard to say who the Texans would hire. I think they like Gannon. I think they like Flores. I think Josina Anderson said that Kevin O'Connell's highly thought of in the Houston's organization. Not sure if that will mean anything. Seems like he's in Minnesota, like I said. I really truly think this whole time the McCown has been either a backup option or the McCown is going to be the offensive coordinator. Because if Gannon and Flores are the guys you need an offensive coordinator. Flores has struggled to hire offensive coordinators. He had 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years in Miami. Again, of course, the defensive guy who may not necessarily be able to find the right guy, but the Texans having Pep Hamilton and Josh McCown available to them will not hurt whatsoever. But to me, I'm thinking the Texans could go Flores. I wouldn't be shocked, but at the same time, I'd be a little surprised because at one point I truly thought that Flores was never, ever, ever going to get a job in the NFL again. But it seems like things with the Saints and Texans, he cleared that up. So he was respectful about that process. The Texans were respectful through the interview process, and they remain interested in him. So I think the two names to look for right now are going to be Jonathan Gannon and Brian Flores. I wish I could give you like a definite conclusion or opinion of who it's going to be, but I feel like things change daily so much with the Texans in this Casario era. It's just so hard to tell. But I think that Flores would be a really good step in the right direction for the Texans organization and for the NFL as a whole, kind of giving Flores a restart and the Texans a restart, just moving in the right direction.
Yeah, hiring Flores would be a fantastic move in my eyes. And as far as Jonathan Gannon goes, apparently he knocked it out of the park in interviews, addition to his follow-up meeting with the Texans team officials. So on top of having a second interview, he's had follow-up interviews. So it seems like Gannon still seems to be the front runner, but for some reason McClain thinks that Josh McCown is the next head coach. So you can probably cross that out. But as far as like the concerns with Brian Flores with him not getting along with the ownership and the front office and whatnot, you can see why he had that power struggle earlier, and that's because apparently the Dolphins owner Ross apparently paid Brian Flores $100,000 to lose a game, and so he was promoting Brian Flores to tank, and Brian Flores wasn't dealing with that. He's like, I don't want to do that, and so he probably got mad in that regard. And apparently the owner also tried to set up an interview with Brian Flores and some other free agent quarterback or something. A lot of people think it's Tom Brady, and they're trying to set up an interview like in the off season or something. Apparently in the winter of 2020. I think that could be either January of 2020, and I don't know if it was December of 2020. But yeah, so apparently he was like trying to get him involved in tampering, and Brian Flores immediately left when he figured out what was happening. So you can see why Brian Flores had a lot of distrust with the Dolphins ownership, and it seems like that they're very corrupt. But as far as like his relationship with Tua, I guess that still seems to be I guess that is a bit rocky, but I feel like that kind of alleviates the concerns that we had with earlier. And even then, earlier today, Lonnie Johnson, a Texan, tweeted out that Brian Flores is a great coach in my opinion, and it's highly likely that other guys in the locker room feel the same way. Brian Flores seems to be highly favored among the Texans players, and we've said this earlier that a lot of Dolphins players were surprised when Brian Flores was fired. So it seems like Brian Flores is a very likable guy among the players. And as far as like the other concern of like the turnover at the offensive coordinator position, it seems like Pep Hamilton might stay with the Texans, considering the Giants. They did hire Mike Kafka, the Chiefs quarterback coach, as their offensive coordinator. So it seems like the opportunities for Pep Hamilton to go elsewhere are dwindling, and so that he just might as well end up staying as the offensive coordinator for the Texans, and that would be amazing. Brian Flores head coach, Pep Hamilton as offensive coordinator, and as far as defensive coordinator, I'm not sure, but I think that would be a great situation for us.
Yeah, I think my biggest concern about Flores was probably just like those stories you heard out of Miami. But after like this case is coming out, man, I don't trust a word coming from those Miami fans. I don't trust a word coming up from the Miami media saying that he didn't know how to talk to players. He had bad relationship with the GM. He had bad relationships with other people in the front office. You have to understand either if that they may not be true, or if it's true, there's a reason behind it because to me it seems like once Flores didn't agree to tank, that the Dolphins were pushing him out. Obviously, you couldn't really fire the guy after 1 year because that'd be really, really wrong to do, especially since he got 5 wins on a team that was projected to go 0-16. And of course, the following year he went 10-6. You still can't really fire him. And then even this year, they go 9-8 after starting 1-7, and it seems kind of crazy that they fired him. So it just screams to me that the Dolphins tried pushing him out. Flores didn't feel comfortable there, and that he is just a fantastic coach who's able to turn things around no matter where he goes, what he does, what the front office is like. And I think the Texans would be a good spot for him because he knows people in this front office already. And I think that if you have that trust, and if the coaches trust him, if the players trust him, the sky's the limit for Brian Flores. He's the kind of coach that could take this team to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and he has dealt with the similar situation of like the Dolphins, who are in a similar position as the Texans right now, who are currently rebuilding. And so he's proven to succeed in those kinds of situations. And Brian Flores, when he filed the lawsuit, he said, "I understand that I might be risking coaching the game I love." And so but he says this is bigger than football. This is bigger than me. And so he really wants to enact change in the league, and that's really admirable. And for the Texans to hire a guy who really just laid all his cards on the table, went all out, for the Texans to stand by him, kind of like us against the world almost. That would be huge for the Texans, in my opinion. But let us know what you think about these recent news updates, and as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Thank you for watching. Peace.